Happy New Year, everybody, and Tony here with my review of Anna Samuel's students' concert Ich bin die Erste Sängerin, which I saw at the Hochschule für Musik Hans Eisler, Berlin. The pianists were Matthias Samuel and Alexandra Venko. The lyric coloratura sopranos were Nelly Loza, Oksana Pinchuk, Louise Fu, Yulia Musenko, and Serena S. The lyric sopranos were Margarita J and Louise G. The mezzo-soprano was Alexandra Venko. The lyric tenor was Mert Ustai, and the baritone was Anon BV. And the compositions were done by Musenko, Johann Strauss Jr., Gioacchino Rossini, Ruggero Leoncavallo, Gaetano Donizetti, Sergei Rachmaninoff, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Walter Braunfels, Umberto Giordano, Jules Massenet, Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, Gustave Charpentier, Giuseppe Verdi, Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, Richard Strauss, César Cui, and Jacques Offenbach. Before the concert started, Anna Samuel announced some of the recent successes that some of her students acquired, from Oksana Pinchuk winning first prize at a singing competition in Italy, to Serena S gaining acclaim in her role as Blonde, from Mozart's Die Entführung aus dem Serail at Munich's Bayerische Staatsoper. I found myself applauding their recent successes, and I can't help but feel proud of what they've been doing so far. With the concert proper, it started off with Nelly Loza singing an aria from a very little-known opera done by a composer who didn't really gain the same level of acclaim, let alone recognition, as his other rivals, being Tchaikovsky or Glinka, or even that of Rimsky-Korsakov, in the form of Mykola Lysenko and his opera Natalka Poltavka, specifically when Miss Loza sang Natalka's song. And I was absolutely overwhelmed in the best possible way in terms of how Nelly Loza sang that particular aria. First of all, her voice had that crystalline and clear color that I truly love in many lyric coloratura sopranos. I would even go out of my way and say that Nelly Loza was the best among all the lyric coloratura sopranos last night. Her voice was well balanced, it was even throughout the registers, there was no shrillness. It was a delightfully even lyric coloratura soprano voice that can have all the potential in the world to sing the bel canto operas and even some of the French operas. And there is a brilliant future for Nelly Loza in terms of roles such as Lucia Ashton, Leila, Lakmé, Mélisande, Berthe from Le Prophète, Catherine from L'Étoile du Nord, Violetta Valeri from La Traviata, the title role of Rossini's Matilde de Chabran, Corinna from Il Viaggio a Rams, Amina from La Sonambula, Elvira from I Puritani, and maybe even Verdi's Giovanna d'Arco. The possibilities for this young lyric coloratura soprano are absolutely endless, because that silvery tone that she was able to emit from her balanced and absolutely gorgeous sounding and youthful lyric coloratura soprano voice was in full evidence last night. She made a strong first impression on me as a listener, and I seriously hope that she continues to develop her technique in the right way, as well as keep on reaching those wonderful heights, not only as a lyric coloratura soprano, but also as an overall singer. Oksana Pinchuk demonstrated charm and charisma in her arias, specifically Non si dà foglia maggiore from Gioacchino Rossini's Il Turco in Italia, Spiel ich die Unschuld vom Lande from Johann Strauss Jr.'s Die Fledermaus, and even Caro Nome from Giuseppe Verdi's Rigoletto. And lest I forget about her stint as Madame Herz from Mozart's Der Schauspieldirektor. Miss Pinchuk's timbre was youthful, sparkling, dazzling, and she played with a lot of vocal fireworks at her advantage. On top of that, she managed to hit the high notes with ease, brilliance, and a whole lot of abandon. Be it a high E flat, or an E, or even a high F, they were all resounding and absolutely brilliant, almost like golden comets pouring out of her mouth. And those stratospheric high notes also complemented her manner on stage, as well as the charisma that she was able to emit in each aria that she sang last night. The only attribute working against her was her tendency to mostly sing high in the larynx, which did cause an imbalance in her voice, as in there were moments that her registers sounded a little bit on the uneven side, but that is quite a dent to pay for what was otherwise an absolutely involving vocal performance. Miss Pinchuk can benefit from lowering her larynx a little bit more, as well as making sure that she does find a way to coordinate her vocal registers a lot more, as well as ensuring that she maintains evenness throughout her voice. Nevertheless, I still applaud Oksana Pinchuk for what she was able to accomplish as an exciting lyric coloratura soprano with a whole lot of chutzpah, as well as a whole lot of brilliance and charisma found not only in her voice, but also how she was able to present herself on stage. Luongo Mornfu does possess a sweet, easy on the ears type of voice that does have that soubrette-ish quality to it. I say soubrette-ish because it's not a voice that's particularly penetrating, let alone something that will excite you. But her voice has that sweetness to it that makes her absolutely ideal for a lot of ingenue roles and roles that call for youth and vivacity. Her start with Gaetano Donizetti's Chacun le sait from La Fille de Régiment was quite good, but I felt like it was lacking a little bit more in color, let alone in more charisma and a lot more spark. A la Lily Pons, Patrice Munsell, and Anna Moffo in her glorious prime. There could have been a lot more vocal color in that particular aria, and there could have been way more vocal charisma and way more dimension in that lyric coloratura soprano voice of hers. And her rendition of Depuis le jour from Gustave Charpentier's Louise could call for a little bit more creaminess and more evenness and a little bit more fullness in the voice, reminiscent of the likes of Dorothy Kirsten or Anna Moffo. But I feel like her strong points were Sergei Rachmaninoff's Nepoy Krasavitsa Primne, which she was able to sing with lyricism, and her number one best was when she was singing Princess Sophie von Inel's lines from Richard Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier. Why I proclaim she was her best in that moment was because she was able to use her youthful, soubrette-sounding voice to make this teenage girl come to life. And that was her absolute forte. Yes, Luongo Mornfu's voice isn't something that's especially penetrating, but that sweet quality of hers did make her ideal for Sophie and her youthfulness, her vivacity, her ecstasy at finally meeting Octavian, who she really loves and is totally fascinated by him. My advice for Miss Fu is to develop her registers a lot more, as well as ensure that she acquires a lot more vocal colors, and also ensures that she does so by coordinating head voice and chest voice so that her voice can sound a lot more present. Nevertheless, Miss Fu does have really good material to work with. She has good material for her lyric coloratura soprano / soubrette soprano voice that she can use to her advantage, and I can only wish the best for her in her future. Yulia Musenko grew in musicianship, grew in charm, as well as in vocal beauty in her renditions of Manon's Gavotte, Obéissons quand le voix appelle, the Snow Maiden's aria, Veliki Tsar, Adele's laughing song, Mein Herr Marquis, and César Cui's Bolero. I first saw and heard her a month ago as Gilda from Verdi's Rigoletto, and she already made a good first impression when she sang that particular role. Here, I thought she was able to grow in musicianship, and she was able to make her voice more present last night. There was more evenness and balance, and she was also able to hit her high notes well and with ease and with so much vocal beauty going for it. Her charismatic charm and her overall lovely appeal bolstered her performance last night, and I can't help but salute her for everything that she accomplished thus far. Miss Musenko was definitely in her A game last night, and I seriously hope the best for her in terms of not only her ever-growing repertoire, especially the prospects of seeing her as Lucia, Linda, Leila, Lakme, Catherine from L'Étoile du Nord, Violetta from La Traviata, and maybe even Zdenka from Arabella and Aitra from the Agatische Helena, but also ensuring that she keeps on growing her technique in the best possible way and making sure that she remains conscientious with her choice of repertoire. Miss Musenko did grow well in musicianship as well as her prowess as a singer, and I will definitely keep on encouraging her to go down the right path in order to keep on growing well as a singer. Also growing from strength to strength was Serena S. She was still able to take advantage of her lovely lyric coloratura soprano voice to the best of her abilities, and her prowess for singing pyrotechnical lines was in pure evidence when she was singing the Nightingale's solo Ach, liebwerte Freunde from Walter Braunfels Die Vögel. And she was also just as wonderful as Madame Silberklang, especially in her solo Bester Jüngling, as well as in her trio Ich bin die Erste Sängerin with Oksana Pinchuk as Madame Herz, as well as with Mert Üstay as Monsieur Vogelgesang. But she was also fine in her rendition of Violetta's solo aria, Estrano, which then transitions to A Force e Lui, and then finally to the cabaletta, Sempre Libera, from Giuseppe Verdi's La Traviata. Yes, the voice could use a little bit more color. Yes, it could use a little bit more dimension, because who I have in my ears as Violetta are the likes of Virginia Tsayani and Anna Moffo. But Serena S was in a class of her own. She was able to attack all of her notes well, and her high E flat was quite ringing and had that silvery edge to it that I enjoyed so much about Miss Science's vocal prowess that I couldn't help but give her a huge round of applause for what she was able to accomplish. Yes, the voice could grow more in charisma. Yes, it could grow more in color and dimension, as well as ensuring that head voice and chest voice remain as well coordinated. But with the material that Serena S has been working with thus far, as well as her ever-growing career as a lyric coloratura soprano being very much more in evidence, I can only encourage her to never rest on her laurels and make sure that she keeps on going the best way possible with improving her technique, as well as making sure that her lyric coloratura soprano voice remains intact for many years to come, because she's got great material to work with, she's got a lot of promise ahead of her, and there are a lot more exciting engagements in store for Serena S as a wonderful lyric coloratura soprano with brilliant top notes, as well as a brilliant timbre that has that silvery edge to it, as well as a whole lot of loveliness to look out for. Margarita J was an absolutely lovely lyric soprano with an even tone, a youthfully beautiful girlish voice, and a silvery timbre that was reflective of how youthful and girlish she was. Although her choice of arias, more specifically Nedda's Stridono Lassù from Leoncavallo's I Pagliacci and Tatiana's final scene with Onegin from Tchaikovsky's Evgeny Onegin, were rather questionable, because this is a voice that is way more suitable for Mimi, Musetta, Magda, Manon, Melisande, and Pamina. Nevertheless, Margarita J managed to strike a strong first impression of me as a singer. That silvery timbre was still in absolutely great evidence in Nedda's solo, in which she was able to imbue her character with youthfulness and brilliance and a whole lot of charisma to boot. And her handling of Tatiana's music managed to show that she was courageous enough to embrace Tchaikovsky's score with everything that she's got and do so in her way. Yes, her interpretation of Tatiana could have called for a lot more vocal creaminess, let alone vocal fullness. However, her elegance, her charm, and her beauty on stage managed to make me forgive whatever shortcomings she had and see a lot of potential in this young lyric soprano with the world at her fingertips. There was no shadow of a doubt that Margarita J was absolutely elegant last night, and she managed to put that elegance to fine use as both Neda and Tatiana. Louise Günther surprised me, and I mean in the best possible way. I first saw her 3 months ago as Fiordiligi from Mozart's Così fan tutte, also at the Hochschule für Musik Hans Eisler, Berlin. I stated in my review that while I thought that she was really good as Fiordiligi in terms of how she was able to hit her high notes and how she looked elegant on stage, there were occasions where her chest tones sounded hollow and could use a lot more work. Here, she was able to improve magnificently, especially evident in her renditions of Umberto Giordano's La Mamma Morta from Andrea Chenier, Tchaikovsky's None But the Lonely Heart, and Massenet's Pleurez Monsieur from Lucide. There is still that silvery crystalline edge that I love and cherish so much about Louise Günther, and that is no doubt her vocal asset that managed to make her a thoroughly strong singer from beginning to end. And she has been maintaining that silvery crystalline edge to her voice to make her voice have that appeal and make her thoroughly listenable. Here, using her chest tones as well as coordinating head voice and chest voice a lot more, I thought she was able to be at her very best. Yes, I do question why she would sing La Mamma Morta from Umberto Giordano's Andrea Chenier, because it does call for a more spinto soprano, let alone dramatic soprano, to sing that particular aria. And yes, she did kind of cheat at the end when she sang the higher version of Io son l'amor instead of going full on chest tones in that particular passage. I would even argue that Ximena does call for a more dramatic, let alone falcon voice, especially not only in Pleurez Messieurs, but also the entire opera. However, that is not to trivialize just how amazingly Miss Günther managed to do in all of these arias. I would even argue that her best work that she's done was Tchaikovsky's None But the Lonely Heart, because she was able to use that natural lyric soprano voice of hers to make her voice shine and shimmer and do a whole lot of amazing things. And what I noticed about Louise Günther is that this is a voice that is way more suitable for singing Mimi, Liu, Alice Ford, Desdemona, and maybe even La Contessa Almaviva and Arabella. The possibilities for Miss Günther, especially in the lyric soprano repertoire, from Liu to Mimi to Arabella to even Zante from Der Liebe der Danae, are absolutely endless. So long as she keeps on developing her technique in the right way, and as long as she remains in the full lyric soprano repertoire, because that is where her forte is. That is where Louise Günther needs to grow as a full lyric soprano with a whole lot of promise and with a lot of great material to come for her. I did hear Alexandra Diachenko in some minor roles. However, her tenor last night managed to show that she has a creamy sounding and absolutely velvety mezzo-soprano voice, evident in her portrayals as Octavian and Niklause. There was an evenness to her voice that I found myself fascinated with, as well as an overall beauty that managed to make her voice homogeneous and absolutely gorgeous to listen to. There was not one vocal flaw that I found with Miss Diachenko, and she has a brilliant future ahead of her. Mert Ustay was a solid lyric tenor who was able to hold his own against Serena S as Madame Silberklang and Oksana Pinchuk as Madame Herz in his tenure as Monsieur Vogelgesang from Mozart's Der Schauspieldirektor. How he was able to hold himself managed to be in full evidence, all thanks to that lyric tenor voice of his being well established, strong, and thoroughly grounded on good covered tones that managed to make his voice penetrate well as have youthfulness back him up. And he also had good musicianship to boot to make this lyric tenor shine in his own special way. But among the men, it was ultimately Anton Belyaev who stole the show as Evgeny Onegin with his scene with Margarita J as Tatiana. His was a strong cavalier baritone voice that had nobility, elegance, pathos, virility, and a charm to it that made me feel like I want to keep rooting for him and I want to keep seeing a lot more of him, let alone hearing a lot more of his voice, because there was a whole lot of evenness to be found as well as a whole lot of great technique to be found. There was no wobble, no tremolo, and no throatiness whatsoever. It was a naturally dark and virile cavalier baritone voice that was naturally full and strong, and that was even throughout all the registers. Therefore, I salute Anton Belyaev for what he was able to accomplish as Onegin. I also have to applaud Matthias Samuel as well as Alexander Fitlin for their fine piano playing. Yes, Matthias Samuel did have the lion's share of most of the piano playing, but I also have to give it to Alexander Fitlin in his piano playing, especially with Margarita J and Anton Belyaev in the Onegin finale, for also holding his own. Both pianists managed to accompany the singers extremely well, and I salute them for their musical efforts. So overall, Anna Samuel's students' concert, Ich bin die erste Sängerin, showed a whole lot of promise and a whole lot of exceptional charm to be found in each and every singer. Yes, there were definitely some singers who could improve a lot more on their techniques. However, the promise that I spotted in each and every one of them last night was nothing short of brilliant, nothing short of absolutely amazing and thrilling. And while there were some reservations, I'm pretty sure that as long as they do not rest on their laurels, let alone be complacent, they can reach a lot more higher heights, not only in the operatic world, but also in their prowess as singers. There's just a whole lot of promise that is there for them, and a whole lot of improvements that can be made as long as they embrace it well and never give in to complacency. So my only advice to all of the singers is to never rest on their laurels, to keep on improving and keep on growing, and also show a whole lot more charisma, especially when it's reflected on the one asset that they should never take away, their voices, because that is where all of the magic is. That is where all of the prowess is. As long as they keep on strengthening their vocal prowess, that I'm pretty sure that the doors will open for each and every one of them. I also have to salute Anna Samuel for training her students the best way that she can. She has done what she can to make sure that her students do follow in a good direction, and I continue to encourage her to nurture their talents, let alone help them to keep on growing the best way possible and with great technical prowess. Aside from Anna Samuel, I also have to give kudos to both Matthias Samuel and Alexander Fitlin for being great accompanists. They were able to hold their own pretty well as work with all of the singers last night. And for those of you who caught Anna Samuel's students' concert, Ich bin die erste Sängerin, at the Hochschule für Musik Eisler Berlin, what'd you think of it? Was there a singer that you really loved in particular, whether it be all the coloratura sopranos or the lyric sopranos, or even Alexandra J, Anton Belyaev, or Mert Ustai? Was there an aria that you particularly loved from this program? Did you feel like this concert managed to be in full evidence of how the singers presented themselves? Or was this concert not really to your liking? Please comment below and let me know. Well, that's it for my review for Anna Samuel's students' concert, Ich bin die erste Sängerin. Tune in next time for my review of Jonas Kaufmann, the tenor. So until then, Happy New Year, everybody!